Hey, Hunter here, CTO and co-founder of Chipp, here to show you how to integrate custom actions into your app. So right here, I have something called To-Do Bot. And what I'm going to be showing you is how to integrate the To-Do API into your Chipp chat so that your Chipp chat can call APIs as custom actions. This is just a very simple API that is going to be really great for demonstration purposes. So to start, let's create a custom action that actually just lists out the whole list of to-dos that we have. So I am going to go to add API action. I'm going to call this get full list of to-dos. And the title and description are really important because it is what informs the AI. It's what informs your Chipp chat when to call this action. So very important to get a good description here. Home list. Never user wants the full list of this line dues. Fantastic. So there's that. We have an import from curl commands, which if you're technical and you understand what curl is, you'll be very familiar with. I'm going to demo how to use that later. Right now, we'll go to get, and all we want to do is have the URL for the full to-do list. And that's it. This one doesn't take any parameters, so we don't need to fill any of this out. We have the testing portion down here where we can run a test and we see, hey, this API call is successful. This is the data that's going to be passed to the AI to generate a response. So let's go ahead and click add action. And in the chat here, I will say, what are my to-dos? We'll wait for the response. And then I get a response back that says, here are your current to-dos and complete tasks. And it lists out 15 to-dos. Fantastic. So we saw the gear icon where it called the custom action and it used the response from the API to generate this response. So let's look at something a little bit more complex now. Let's actually give it the ability to retrieve a single to-do by ID. So you can see this as /todos/ID. So, well, let's get specific to-do, and we will put the description on this one for this never user to a specific to item. Fantastic. And then the URL, we will put our URL that we copied. This is still going to be a GET request, but it's not going to be one. What we actually want to do is insert in our first AI generated parameter. And so this is going to be an AI generated parameter of, what should we call this? To-do ID. And so you can see when I added the double curly braces and I added a variable name here, you'll notice that this automatically filled in. It identified that, hey, this is a path parameter. We're going to let the AI generate this one. The key is going to be to-do ID. And we're going to make this type number. And we need to give the AI a hint as to what an example value for this would be. So we'll just say example value would be 5, right? For the ID of the to-do. And then also very important, we need to give instructions on what the AI should return for this value. So this is numerical ID of the specific to-do that user is requesting. Fantastic. And this is required. So we cannot call this custom action without this parameter being provided. And it's impossible to call this custom action without it. So it is required. Let's go down. And when we click run our test, the value that we have in the simple field here is going to be sent to the API. And we'll see that this to do with ID 5 is invest in cryptocurrency. This looks pretty good. We'll add the action. And so I'm now going to test it out and say, let's see here. What is to do 203? It'll say to do 203 is try indoor rock climbing. Let's just verify that for ourselves. Let's go into see what to do 203 is by just hitting the API ourselves. Try indoor rock climbing. You got it correct. Fantastic. I'm a little confused as to why it says invest in cryptocurrency. It looked like it did a filter for just incomplete tasks. So let's ask it, say, what is to do 5? Invest in cryptocurrency. So it looked like it just did a filter for us in that first list there. So let's look at actually posting to an API via a custom action now. So if we go to our dummy JSON, you can add, limit and skip parameters. Actually, let's review that really quick. So let's copy this in here and we will say limit and skip to-dos. Let's actually add this to our full list of to-dos. So let's say limit equals limit. Actually, you know what? Why don't we review hard-coded values and skip this 10. So what this is going to do is say only return 3 to-dos at a time and skip the first 10 to-dos. And again, when you modify the URL like this, you'll see that the query parameters automatically populate. This is a fixed value. You'll notice in the help text here, fixed value is it never changes. The AI is never going to generate it. You're just going to provide it and it'll be the same all the time. So that's what this is here. Or run our test, it's going to use our examples or values here to actually call the API. You'll see we got 3 to-dos back and we skipped the first 10. So you notice it starts with 11. So that's the way that works. Very necessary part of creating a custom action. You're always going to have some set of values that do not change. Specifically, if you're calling an API that requires is protected behind authorization, you'll probably want to add a fixed value of an authorization header here, and it'll be something like bearer and then your token, whatever it is for that API. Fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead. What's that? All right. So let's look at actually doing a post request to create a to-do. So if we copy this here, so this is a post request to do/add, we will create. So it's to do. Pull this when a user asks you to create a item. Fantastic. Paste our URL in here. And this is going to be a post request. Fantastic. So let's look at what parameters we need to provide. So most everything is in the body. So it looks like we have a to-do field that we need to supply in the body. So I'll say add new parameter. This is going to be an AI generated parameter. We're going to call this to do. Value example finish the Andrew, right? Would be an example value with that. And tell the AI what this is. The description of the to do. It's pretty much what that is. It is required. Let's look at the other parameters. We need completed false. I think every time we make a to-do, it's just always going to be false. So let's have that be a fixed value completed. And this is going to be a boolean. And a sample value, the value all the time is just going to be false. So we always create to-do. Whenever we create a new to-do, it is just by default false. User ID, this is an example API, so I don't think this is going to be a hugely consequential value. I'll get into system variables in a little bit. We'll make this a fixed value. Call this user ID, and we're just this number, and I'll make it 5. Cool. Then we are going to run a test. Fantastic. We made that to do. Added the action, and let's say add a new to do to find me to tell who figures that they are awesome. See it call that new API that we've just added. To do has been added. Remind me to tell my coworkers that they're awesome. So that actually is not going to show up in this API because it is just a sample API available to the broad public. But we saw that it showed the gear icon, which means that it's calling a tool, and it adds a new to do. All right. So it's the same process for updating a to do or deleting a to do. You have, when you create an API action, you have HTTP methods here. You will see all of the HTTP methods. You'll see I just have get and post here, but in the live version of this, you'll see all the HTTP methods are available to you. So you can do any endpoint, any action. let us talk very quickly about importing custom action from a curl request. Say that I actually want to, I have an API somewhere that in the documentation, most API documentation will have a curl request showing how to call that API. And so a really handy thing to do in Chipp is to copy that and then paste it in as a custom action. So what I have here is another app that I call Pirate GPT. And I'll be like, hi there. Weather. And what I have in the system prompt here is it just tells really bad pirate jokes. It's not just me being silly. This is actually a really high signal way to verify that something is working because it's some fairly unique output. So what you can also do in your Chipp chats is you can access them via an API. And so if you go to the Share tab and you go down here, you'll see an example curl request for how to call this API, for how to call this Chipp via API. And so I'm going to copy this curl request to my clipboard. I'm going to go to my to-do bot and I am going to create a custom action that says, and I'm going to click import from curl. And I have a text area here where I can paste in a curl request, paste in my curl request like that. And you'll see my API key here, and this is going to be thrown away after this video. So don't screenshot it and think that you've got some sensitive data. The curl request is pasted in there, and I'm going to click parse curl. Curl parse successfully. You'll see that it changed it to a post request. I'm calling my local server, and it has a system variable in here called messages. So system variables are variables that are provided by the Chipp platform at runtime for your convenience. So something that has been highly requested is to be able to add the chat history to a custom action. So having access to the contents of the conversation and sending that to an external API. So what we have here, what I can really do rather than we auto detect if you have a messages field and we swap in the system variable for convenience. But what I can do here is have my curly braces and say system.message history. And you parse the curl and it's the same thing. And you can do that with the user ID. So the user ID is the string that we use in the Chipp system to identify that user. If the user is logged in, it'll be their email. If they're anonymous, it'll be a UUID. And then a timestamp. So timestamp is pretty useful for knowing when an action happened. And so these three system variables are available to you to pass in your curl request, or if you're not importing your custom action via a curl request, you can also select it in the form here. You can see I can let the AI generate a value, be a fixed value, or I can say it's a system variable. And you'll see user ID, timestamp, message history, and then a quick reference to just remind you what each of those things are. Fantastic. So that is how to create a custom action when you import a curl request and when you just manually configure a request. If you have any difficulty whatsoever, if you're still confused about this, please join us on our Discord server and feel free to tag me personally or tag another member of the Chipp team. Happy building.